I always thought New Year's was for new beginnings, not for being replaced at your own dinner table. But there I was, watching my wife Julia set our dining room like we were hosting the damn president. Gold napkins, crystal glasses, candles that cost more than most people's weekly groceries. The whole production screamed, "Special occasion," which should have been my first warning. "Alex, can you open the good wine?" Julia called from the kitchen, her voice carrying that particular tone she used when she was planning something. You know the one, sweet on the surface, but with an edge that suggested arguing wasn't an option. "Sure, babe. Who's coming again?" I asked, though I had a sinking feeling I already knew. Julia appeared in the doorway, smoothing down her black dress, the one she usually saved for work parties and date nights we hadn't had in months. Her blonde hair was perfectly styled, makeup flawless. She looked stunning, which made what came next even more of a slap in the face. "Greg's joining us for dinner," she said, like she was announcing the weather. I stopped mid-pour, the wine bottle frozen in my hand. "Greg? As in Greg Wallace? Your ex-boyfriend Greg?" "Don't be dramatic, Alex. He's in town for the holidays, and I thought it would be nice to catch up." She walked over and straightened a napkin that was already perfectly straight. "Don't get jealous. This is my New Year's gift to myself." I laughed. Actually laughed, waiting for the punchline. When none came, the sound died in my throat. "Julia, why would you invite your ex-boyfriend to our family dinner without asking me?" She turned to face me, and I saw something cold flash in her green eyes. "Because I don't need permission to invite friends to my own home. If you can't handle it, don't ruin my night." The threat was crystal clear. Swallow it or be the bad guy. Play along or she'd walk out and somehow make it my fault for being insecure. After 12 years of marriage, I knew this game. I also knew I'd never won it. "Right," I said, forcing a smile. "Of course. Silly me." But my stomach was already tightening into knots. Our daughter Maddie wandered downstairs looking skeptical. At 15, she had inherited my sarcasm and Julia's ability to read people like open books. Not a great combination for family harmony. "Why does the house smell like Mom's trying to impress someone?" Maddie asked, grabbing an apple from the counter. "Greg's coming for dinner," Julia announced, like this was perfectly normal. Maddie's eyebrows shot up. "Greg? The guy from your college photos? The one who looks like he bench presses small cars for fun?" "He's a fitness entrepreneur now," Julia said defensively. "Cool. So we're having dinner with Mom's ex, while Dad pretends this isn't weird." Maddie bit into her apple with a loud crunch. "This should be fun." "Madison, watch your tone," Julia snapped. "I'm just saying what we're all thinking," Maddie replied, then looked at me. "Right, Dad?" Before I could answer, the doorbell rang. Julia practically sprinted to get it, leaving me standing there with a half-empty wine bottle and a daughter who was giving me a look that said, "Are you really going to let this happen?" Greg Wallace filled our doorway like he owned it. 6'2", all muscle and confidence, holding a bottle of champagne that probably cost more than our monthly grocery budget. His smile was the kind that belonged on magazine covers or political campaigns. Too perfect to be real. "Julia." He wrapped my wife in a hug that lasted about 3 seconds too long. "You look incredible." "Greg, you remember my husband Alex," Julia said, stepping back but staying close enough to him that I noticed. "Alex, good to see you, man." Greg extended his hand with the grip of someone who could probably crush walnuts with his bare fingers. "Thanks for having me. Hope you don't mind the intrusion." "Not at all," I lied, wondering if my smile looked as forced as it felt. "Welcome to our home." "And this must be Maddie," Greg said, turning his attention to our daughter. "Wow, you've grown up. Last time I saw you, you were maybe 5 years old." That stopped me cold. Last time? When exactly had there been a last time? Maddie, bless her, just stared at him. "I don't remember you." "That's okay. You were pretty young." Greg's smile never wavered. "Your mom used to show me pictures all the time." All the time. Present tense. My stomach dropped another few inches. Dinner was a masterclass in being erased from your own life. Greg and Julia sat across from each other while I anchored one end of the table like a piece of furniture. They talked about mutual friends I'd never heard of, places they'd been together, memories I'd never lived. Every story started with, "Remember when we," and ended with laughter I wasn't part of. "Remember that time in college when we drove to the beach at midnight?" Julia giggled, actually giggled, while cutting her steak. "And you insisted on swimming even though it was 40 degrees outside?" Greg finished, grinning. "You were always fearless." "Still am," Julia said, and the way she looked at him made something twist in my chest. I tried to join the conversation. "That sounds fun. I've always wanted to do something spontaneous like that." They both looked at me like I'd interrupted a private moment, which I guess I had. Alex isn't really the spontaneous type, Julia said to Greg like I wasn't sitting right there. He likes his routines. Nothing wrong with that, Greg said diplomatically, but his tone suggested there was plenty wrong with it. Different people, different styles. Maddie was watching this whole exchange with the fascination of someone witnessing a car crash. She caught my eye and made a face that clearly said, "This is messed up, Dad." As the evening wore on, it got worse. Julia laughed at Greg's jokes. Really laughed, not the polite chuckle she gave mine. She touched his arm when she talked, leaned in when he spoke, and glowed in a way I hadn't seen in months, maybe years. Every time I tried to steer the conversation toward neutral ground, work, current events, literally anything that didn't involve their shared past, it somehow circled back to them. It was like watching my wife fall in love in real time, right in front of me, with someone who wasn't me. I should probably head out soon, Greg said around 10:30, though he made no move to leave. Early flight tomorrow. Where are you headed? I asked, hoping the answer was far away and permanent. Back to Denver. I've got a chain of gyms there now. Business is booming. He looked at Julia. You should come visit sometime. I'd love to show you what I've built. That sounds amazing, Julia said, and I could practically see the wheels turning in her head. We should all visit, I said quickly. Right, honey? Julia's smile faltered for just a second. Sure, maybe. But we all knew she wasn't thinking about a family trip. As midnight approached, someone turned on the TV for the countdown. Times Square filled our living room with noise and celebration, but the real party was happening between my wife and her ex-boyfriend. They stood close together, sharing some private joke, while I felt like a ghost haunting my own New Year's Eve. 10, 9, 8. Julia and Greg were laughing about something. 7, 6, 5. She put her hand on his shoulder. 4, 3, 2. She didn't even look at me. 1, Happy New Year. And something in me went completely quiet. I stood up slowly, calmly, while confetti fell on TV and my wife glowed at another man. Greg was saying something about new beginnings and fresh starts, but I wasn't really listening anymore. Looks like this is your gift now, I said to Greg, my voice steady as ice. Then I turned to Julia. Enjoy the present you gave yourself. I'm done being the price. I pulled off my wedding ring and set it on the table next to the good china and expensive champagne. The metal made a tiny clink against the wood that somehow seemed louder than all the celebration on TV. Alex, what are you doing? Julia's voice was sharp, but I could hear the uncertainty underneath. Starting my new year, I said, and walked toward the door. Dad? Maddie's voice followed me, worried. It's okay, sweetheart. I'll call you tomorrow. I grabbed my coat and stepped out into the cold January air. Behind me, I could hear Julia calling my name, but I didn't turn around. For the first time in months, maybe years, my head was completely clear. I had work to do. The Marriott downtown wasn't exactly the Four Seasons, but it had clean sheets and a view that didn't include my wife cozying up to her ex-boyfriend. I'd been there 3 days, living off room service and the kind of bitter coffee that matched my mood when Maddie called. Dad, you need to come home. Mom's lost her mind. I was sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at my laptop screen where I'd been pretending to work. What do you mean? She's acting like you just disappeared for no reason. She told Mrs. Patterson next door that you're having some kind of midlife crisis. Maddie's voice was tight with frustration. She's playing the victim, Dad. It's gross. Mrs. Patterson. Of course. The neighborhood's unofficial news network, a 70-year-old woman who knew everyone's business better than they did. If Julia was talking to her, she was making sure her version of events spread faster than a wildfire. What exactly is she saying? That you stormed out on New Year's Eve for no reason? That you've been acting strange lately? That she's worried about your mental health? I could hear Maddie moving around, probably pacing her room like she did when she was angry. She's not mentioning Greg at all. It's like he was never here. Of course she wasn't. Julia had always been good at editing reality to suit her narrative. Are you okay, kiddo? I'm fine. But Dad, Greg's still here. My hand tightened on the phone. What do you mean still here? He was supposed to fly back to Denver on New Year's Day, remember? Well, apparently his flight got delayed. I could hear the air quotes in her voice. He's been here every day since you left. They're not even trying to hide it anymore. Something cold and sharp settled in my stomach. Maddie, I need you to listen to me. If you ever feel uncomfortable or unsafe... Dad, I'm not stupid. I'm staying at Emma's house most nights. Her mom knows what's going on. Maddie paused. But you should know that people are starting to talk. And not the way Mom wants them to. What do you mean? Mrs. Patterson might be a gossip, but she's not blind. She saw Greg's car in our driveway at 7 in the morning yesterday. She asked me who the handsome young man was, and I told her he was Mom's college boyfriend who's been staying over since you left. I almost smiled. Almost. Maddie? What? You said to always tell the truth. Mrs. Patterson looked like someone had slapped her with a fish. I think she's putting two and two together. My daughter was 15 and already understood the power of strategic honesty. I was proud and terrified in equal measure. I'm coming to get some of my things this afternoon. Will you be there? Yeah. Mom and Greg are going to lunch, so the coast will be clear. Dad, I'm really sorry this is happening. It's not your fault, sweetheart. None of this is your fault. After we hung up, I sat in that hotel room and did something I hadn't done in years. I planned. Really planned. Not the kind of day-to-day logistics that kept our household running, but the kind of deep, strategic thinking I used at work when a project was going sideways and needed a complete overhaul. Julia thought she was playing chess while I was playing checkers. She was about to learn that I'd been studying the board a lot longer than she realized. My first stop was the house. Maddie was right. Greg's car wasn't there. A silver BMW that screamed compensation vehicle was notably absent from my driveway. I used my key and slipped inside, moving quickly through rooms that felt like a museum of my former life. Everything was different. Julia had rearranged the living room, moving furniture to create more intimate seating. The dining room table was back to its everyday setup, all evidence of our New Year's disaster erased. Even the air smelled different. Some expensive cologne that definitely wasn't mine. I gathered clothes and personal items, but more importantly, I gathered information. Julia had always been careless with paperwork, leaving bills and statements scattered around her home office. I photographed everything relevant. Credit card statements showing expensive dinners for two, hotel charges from the past few months, receipts from places I'd never been. But the real gold mine was her laptop, which she'd left open on the kitchen counter. Julia had never been good with passwords. She used the same one for everything, our anniversary date. The irony wasn't lost on me. Her email told a story that made my stomach turn. Messages with Greg going back 6 months, starting innocent enough but quickly becoming something else entirely. Plans for his business trip to our city, discussions about their connection and how she felt trapped in her marriage, references to the New Year's dinner as a test to see how I'd react. The worst part? She'd been talking to her friends about it. Tara and Marcy, her yoga buddies, had been cheering her on, encouraging her to follow her heart and stop settling for boring. They'd helped her plan the whole thing. I forwarded the most damning emails to my personal account, then cleared the sent folder. Julia might be careless, but I wasn't stupid. Dad? I spun around to find Maddie in the doorway, backpack slung over her shoulder. Hey, kiddo, how was school? Weird. People are asking questions. She dropped her bag and studied my face. You found something, didn't you? What makes you say that? You have your work face on, the one you get when you're solving a really complicated problem. She sat down at the kitchen island. How bad is it? I closed the laptop and looked at my daughter. Really looked at her. 15 years old, but with eyes that had seen too much in the past few days. She deserved honesty, but not all of it. It's been going on longer than New Year's Eve. I figured. Maddie picked at her nail polish, a nervous habit she'd had since she was little. Emma's mom asked if we needed anything, like food or whatever. I think she knows. What did you tell her? That we're okay, but thanks. But Dad, I don't think we can keep pretending this is normal. People are starting to choose sides. She was right. In a neighborhood like ours, where everyone knew everyone and gossip traveled faster than Wi-Fi, neutrality wasn't an option. People would either believe Julia's version, that I'd abandoned my family over nothing, or they'd figure out what was really happening. Your mom's friends, Tara and Marcy, have they been around? Yesterday. They brought wine and talked really loud about how men sometimes can't handle strong women making independent choices. Maddie made air quotes again. It was like they wanted the whole neighborhood to hear. And what did you think of that? I think they're idiots, and I think Mom's making a huge mistake. Maddie looked up at me. But I also think you're not going to just roll over and take this. Smart kid. Too smart. I'm going to handle this, Maddie, but I need you to stay out of it, okay? Whatever happens, you're not responsible for fixing your parents' mess. I know, but Dad, when you do whatever you're planning, make sure you win. That evening, I sat in my hotel room with a legal pad and started making lists. Julia thought she held all the cards, the house, the social connections, the narrative. She was about to learn that being underestimated was my greatest advantage. First, I called my lawyer. Not our family lawyer, Julia's golf buddy who'd probably tip her off, but a shark I'd heard about from guys at work, someone who specialized in cases where wives thought they were smarter than their husbands. Then I called Neil, my coworker, and the closest thing I had to a best friend. Neil was a tech guy, quiet and methodical, the kind of person who noticed everything and forgot nothing. Alex? Jesus, man, I heard about New Year's. You okay? I'm better than okay. I need a favor. Name it. I need help documenting some things, legally, above board, but thoroughly. There was a pause. What kind of things? The kind that prove I'm not having a midlife crisis. Ah, Neil's voice got interested. When do we start? Tomorrow. And Neil, this stays between us. Goes without saying, but Alex, whatever you're planning, make sure you're ready for the consequences. Julia's not going to go down easy. I'm counting on it. After I hung up, I looked out the hotel window at the city lights and thought about consequences. Julia had made her choice when she invited Greg into our home. She'd doubled down when she let him stay. She'd declared war when she started spinning lies to the neighbors. She wanted to play games? Fine. But she was about to learn that I'd been studying the rules a lot longer than she thought. And unlike her, I played to win. Neil arrived at my hotel room the next morning looking like he'd raided Best Buy's surveillance section. He had cameras, recording devices, and a laptop that probably cost more than my car. Okay, before you ask, everything I'm showing you is completely legal, he said, spreading equipment across my bed. These are all things you can buy at any electronics store. Nothing fancy, nothing that requires special licenses. I'm not planning to spy on anyone, I said, though I appreciated his thoroughness. Good, because that would be stupid and illegal. What we're going to do is document public behavior and gather evidence that's already accessible. Neil held up a small device. Voice recorder. Perfectly legal to record conversations you're part of in this state. This camera? For taking pictures of your own property and anything visible from public spaces. And this? I pointed to what looked like a regular cell phone. Backup recording app. Syncs to cloud storage automatically. If someone decides to get physical or threatening, you'll have proof. Neil's expression was serious. Alex, I need to know you're not planning anything stupid. Define stupid. Anything that could get you arrested, sued, or make you look like the bad guy. I sat down on the hotel bed and looked at my friend. Neil and I had worked together for 8 years. He'd seen me handle crisis after crisis at the office, always calm, always methodical, always thinking 3 steps ahead. Julia's been telling people I abandoned my family for no reason. She's got her friends spreading rumors about my mental health. Meanwhile, she's playing house with her ex-boyfriend in my home around my daughter. I picked up the voice recorder. I'm not planning anything stupid. I'm planning to tell the truth, loudly. Okay, what do you need? We spent the morning going over everything. Neil showed me how to use each device, how to store evidence securely, and most importantly, how to stay within legal boundaries. Everything we discussed was about documenting facts, not creating drama. The key is patience, Neil said as he packed up his gear. Let them hang themselves with their own rope. Don't push, just be ready to catch whatever they give you. What if they don't give me anything? Neil laughed. Alex, your wife invited her ex-boyfriend to New Year's dinner and then gaslit you about it. Trust me, they'll give you plenty. He was right, of course. I just didn't expect it to happen so quickly. That afternoon, I drove past the house, my house, to see Greg's BMW parked in my usual spot. Bold. I parked down the street and called the landline, knowing Julia would answer. Hello? Hi, Julia. I wanted to talk about arrangements for Maddie, and to get some more of my things. There was a pause. In the background, I could hear music and what sounded like Greg's voice. This isn't a good time, Alex. When would be a good time? I don't know. We're busy right now. We're. Not I'm. We're. I see. Well, I'll be by tomorrow around noon to get my things. I assume that works for you and your guest. Alex, don't be like this. Like what? A husband who wants to collect his belongings from his own home? You know what I mean. Greg is just what, Julia? Just a friend? Just visiting? Just sleeping in my bed? The silence stretched long enough that I knew I'd hit the mark. I don't have to explain anything to you, she said finally. You're the one who walked out. You're right. I did walk out, after you invited your ex-boyfriend to our family dinner and spent the evening treating me like hired help in my own home. That's not what happened. Then what did happen, Julia? Explain it to me. Another pause. I don't owe you an explanation. Maybe not. But you might owe one to Maddie, and the neighbors, and your boss when someone mentions that you've been hosting overnight guests while your husband is staying in a hotel. Are you threatening me? I'm stating facts. Tomorrow at noon, Julia. I'll be quick. I hung up and sat in my car, hands shaking slightly from adrenaline. The voice recorder app had captured everything. Not smoking gun material, but definitely useful. My phone buzzed with a text from Maddie. Mom's freaking out. She's calling Tara and Marcy. Something about you being difficult. I texted back, stay at Emma's tonight if you can. Things might get complicated. Already planned on it. Love you, Dad. Love you too, kiddo. That evening, I got a call from Tara, Julia's friend, yoga buddy, and apparently relationship counselor. Alex, hi, it's Tara. I hope you don't mind me calling. Not at all. What can I do for you? Well, I've been talking to Julia, and she's really worried about you. We all are. Tara's voice had that fake concerned tone that people use when they are fishing for information. She said you've been acting strange lately. Strange how? Just different, distant, and then walking out on New Year's Eve like that? She let the sentence hang. Tara, were you at our house for New Year's dinner? No, but Julia told me what happened. And what did she tell you happened? That you got upset over nothing and stormed out. Left her alone on New Year's Eve? Tara's voice was gaining confidence. Alex, I know marriage is hard, but you can't just abandon your family when things get tough. I almost laughed. Almost. Did Julia mention that she invited her ex-boyfriend to dinner without telling me? Silence. Did she mention that they spent the entire evening reminiscing about their relationship while I sat there like a piece of furniture? More silence. Did she mention that Greg has been staying at our house every night since I left? Alex, I think you're misunderstanding. Am I? Tara, let me ask you something. If your husband invited his ex-girlfriend to your New Year's dinner, and she spent the night touching his arm and laughing at his jokes while ignoring you completely, how would you react? That's different. How is it different? Julia and Greg are just friends. They have history, but history. Right. I was recording this conversation, and Tara was giving me gold. So, if they're just friends, why is his car in my driveway every morning? Why is Julia lying to the neighbors about why I left? Why are you calling me instead of suggesting that maybe, just maybe, my wife should have discussed this with me first? I think you're being paranoid. And I think you're being naive, but we'll see. I hung up and immediately called Neil. Please tell me you recorded that, he said after I filled him in. Every word. Beautiful. She just admitted that Julia's been talking to her friends about this, which means there's a coordinated effort to control the narrative. And she confirmed that Greg's car is there every morning, which she wouldn't know unless Julia told her. What's my next move? Tomorrow's house visit. Be calm, be reasonable, and let them show you who they really are. If Greg's there, even better. Why? Because if he's there when you come to collect your belongings, it shows he's not just visiting, he's moved in. And Alex? Make sure you document everything. The next morning, I drove to my house with a sick feeling in my stomach and a voice recorder in my pocket. Greg's BMW was in the driveway, right where I'd expected it to be. I rang the doorbell of my own home. Julia answered, looking like she'd dressed for battle. Perfect makeup, hair styled, wearing a dress that was way too nice for noon on a Wednesday. She was performing for someone, and I had a pretty good idea who. Alex, you're early. It's 12:05, Julia. I said noon. Right, well, come in, but please don't make a scene. I stepped into my own foyer and immediately saw Greg sitting at my kitchen island, drinking coffee from my favorite mug, reading my newspaper. He looked up and smiled like we were old friends. Alex, good to see you, man. How's the hotel treating you? The casual cruelty of it took my breath away. He knew exactly what he was doing. It's fine, thanks. I'm just here to get some things. Of course. Julia mentioned you needed some clothes and stuff. Greg stood up, and I noticed he was wearing a bathrobe. My bathrobe. I'll stay out of your way. That's thoughtful of you, I said, my voice steady despite the rage building in my chest. Though I have to ask, are you staying here now? Greg looked at Julia, who jumped in quickly. Greg's flight was delayed. The airline is having issues. For over a week? It's complicated, Julia said. I bet it is. I looked around my kitchen, noting details. Greg's protein powder on the counter, his workout clothes draped over my chairs, a second coffee cup in the sink. Well, I'll just grab my things and get out of your way. I headed upstairs, and what I found in my bedroom made my hands clench into fists. The bed was unmade, clearly slept in by two people. Greg's clothes were in my dresser, his toiletries were in my bathroom. He hadn't just moved in, he'd replaced me. I packed methodically, taking my time, documenting everything with my phone's camera. When I came back downstairs, Julia and Greg were sitting close together at the kitchen island, talking in low voices. They looked up when I appeared, and I saw guilt flash across Julia's face. "All set?" she asked, too brightly. "Just about. I do have one question, though." "What's that?" "How long has this been going on?" "Alex, we've been through this." "No, Julia, we haven't. You told me Greg was just visiting, but his clothes are in my dresser, his toothbrush is in my bathroom, he's wearing my bathrobe and drinking from my coffee mug." I looked directly at Greg. "So I'll ask again. How long has this been going on?" Greg had the decency to look uncomfortable. "Look, man, it's not what you think. What I think is that my wife has been having an affair, and you've moved into my house while I'm paying for a hotel room." I kept my voice calm, reasonable. "What I think is that you two planned this whole thing, and the New Year's dinner was just your way of rubbing my face in it." "That's not true," Julia said, but her voice lacked conviction. "Then explain it to me. Make me understand how this is all innocent." They looked at each other, and in that look, I saw everything I needed to know. This wasn't a spontaneous reunion or a delayed flight. This was a relationship that had been building for months, maybe longer. "You know what?" I said, slinging my bag over my shoulder. "Don't explain it. I think I understand perfectly." I headed for the door, then turned back. "Oh, and Julia? You might want to call Tara back. Tell her the story's changed again." I walked out of my house for the second time in a week, but this time was different. This time, I had evidence. This time, I had a plan. And this time, I wasn't running away. I was getting ready to fight back. The thing about being underestimated is that people stop watching their backs around you. Julia and Greg had gotten so comfortable with their narrative that I was the wronged husband having a breakdown that they'd started making mistakes, big ones. The first mistake came courtesy of Mrs. Patterson, who called me 2 days after my house visit. "Alex, dear, I hope you don't mind me calling. Maddie gave me your number." "Of course, Mrs. Patterson. What can I do for you?" "Well, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I thought you should know. That young man staying with Julia, he's been quite visible." I sat up straighter in my hotel room. "Visible how?" "Yesterday morning, he was in your front yard doing exercises. Shirtless, at 7 a.m. The whole neighborhood saw him." Mrs. Patterson's voice carried the scandalized tone of someone who'd witnessed a public indecency. "And then Julia came out in just a robe and brought him coffee. They were very affectionate." "I see. Alex, I've lived in this neighborhood for 30 years. I've seen marriages go through rough patches. But what I saw yesterday..." She paused. "That wasn't a house guest." "No, Mrs. Patterson, I don't think it was." "I'm sorry, dear. I know this must be difficult." After she hung up, I called Neil. "They're getting sloppy," I told him. "Good. Sloppy people make mistakes. What's the latest?" I filled him in on Mrs. Patterson's call and the house visit. Neil listened without interrupting, which meant he was thinking. "Alex, I think it's time to go public." "What do you mean?" "I mean, stop playing defense. You've got evidence, you've got witnesses, and they're getting more brazen by the day. Time to let people know what's really happening." "How?" "Social media, neighborhood app. Hell, take out an ad in the local paper. But tell your story before they finish writing theirs." Neil was right. Julia and her friends were already controlling the narrative, painting me as an unstable husband who'd abandoned his family. Every day I stayed quiet was another day for their version to become accepted truth. That evening, I sat down and wrote the most important Facebook post of my life. "I know there have been questions about why I've been staying at a hotel for the past week, and I think it's time to set the record straight." On New Year's Eve, my wife invited her ex-boyfriend to our family dinner without discussing it with me. She spent the evening ignoring me while reminiscing about their relationship with him. When I expressed discomfort with the situation, she told me not to be jealous because it was her New Year's gift to herself. I left rather than cause a scene in front of our daughter. Since then, her ex-boyfriend has been staying in our home while I pay for a hotel room. I'm not having a breakdown, and I didn't abandon my family. I'm a husband who discovered that his wife values her past more than her present. I'm sharing this because I believe in honesty, and because my daughter deserves to have at least one parent who tells the truth. I stared at the post for 20 minutes before hitting publish. Once it was out there, there would be no taking it back. My phone started buzzing within minutes. The first call was from my brother Mike in Seattle. "Jesus Christ, Alex, are you serious?" "Completely. What do you need?" A good lawyer and maybe a place to crash if this gets ugly. You've got both. What else? The second call was from my neighbor Tom, who lived 3 houses down. Alex, I just saw your post. Man, I'm sorry. I had no idea. Thanks, Tom. Listen, if you need anything, and I mean anything, let me know. What Julia's doing, it's not right. The third call was from Julia. What the hell is wrong with you? She screamed before I could even say hello. How dare you air our private business on Facebook? Which part was inaccurate, Julia? You made me sound like some kind of cheating wife. Are you not cheating? It's not that simple. Actually, it is that simple. You're married to me, and you're sleeping with Greg. In most people's books, that's called cheating. You don't understand. Then explain it to me, right now, on the record. Make me understand how this is all innocent. Silence. That's what I thought, I said. Julia, you made your choice. You chose Greg over our marriage, and you chose lies over honesty. Now you get to live with the consequences. I'll fight you on everything. The house, custody, everything. I'm counting on it. I hung up and immediately got a text from Maddie. Dad, Mom is losing it. She's crying and screaming and calling all her friends. I'm staying at Emma's tonight. Good call, kiddo. Love you. Love you too. P.S. Saw your Facebook post. About time. The fourth call was from Tara, Julia's friend and my new least favorite person. Alex, what you posted is completely inappropriate. Which part? All of it. You're humiliating Julia publicly. I'm telling the truth publicly. There's a difference. You're making her look like a villain. Tara, she invited her ex-boyfriend to our New Year's dinner, let him move into our house, and has been lying to everyone about why I left. What part of that makes her the victim? She's going through a difficult time. So am I. The difference is, I'm not lying about it. You're being cruel. No, Tara, I'm being honest. If honesty seems cruel, maybe you should ask yourself why. The calls kept coming. Some supportive, some critical, all proof that my Facebook post had accomplished exactly what I'd hoped. It had forced people to choose sides based on facts instead of Julia's fiction. But the real payoff came the next morning when Mrs. Patterson called again. Alex, dear, I hope you don't mind, but I shared your Facebook post in our neighborhood group. I thought people should know the truth. I appreciate that, Mrs. Patterson. Well, you should know that several people have come forward with observations. It seems Julia and her young man have been quite visible lately. What kind of observations? The Johnsons saw them kissing in your driveway Tuesday morning. The Martinezes heard them arguing about something called going public last weekend. And the Chens... Mrs. Patterson paused dramatically. The Chens have security cameras. My heart started beating faster. Security cameras? Motion activated, pointing toward the street, but they catch your driveway too. Mr. Chen says he has footage of Julia and her friend being quite intimate outside your home, multiple times. Would Mr. Chen be willing to share that footage? I believe he would, especially after what you've been through. After Mrs. Patterson hung up, I sat in my hotel room and realized that everything was about to change. Julia and Greg had been so confident, so careless, that they'd given me exactly what I needed to prove my case. But more than that, they'd given me the ammunition to destroy the narrative they'd been building. I called my lawyer. How quickly can you file divorce papers? How quickly do you need them filed? Yesterday. I'll have them ready by this afternoon. Alex, based on what you've told me and the evidence you've gathered, this is going to be a very different kind of divorce than what your wife is expecting. Good. She's been underestimating me for too long. What's your next move? I looked out the hotel window at the city where I'd built a life, raised a daughter, and thought I'd found happiness. Julia and Greg had taken that away from me, but they'd also given me something else, clarity. I'm going to show them what happens when you mistake kindness for weakness. And how do you plan to do that? I smiled for the first time in days. By giving them exactly what they asked for. The divorce papers were delivered to Julia on a Friday afternoon. I know this because Maddie texted me. Mom just got served. She's freaking out, like really freaking out. She keeps saying this isn't how it was supposed to happen. I was sitting in my lawyer's office when I got the text. Patricia Webb was the kind of attorney who wore expensive suits and had a reputation for eating opposing counsel for breakfast. She'd reviewed all my evidence and had smiled like a shark. Your wife made a critical error, Patricia said, sliding a folder across her desk. She assumed you'd be the typical abandoned husband, emotional, reactive, easy to manipulate in court. Instead, you documented everything. You stayed calm. You let them hang themselves. She opened the folder. The security footage from your neighbor is particularly damaging. Timestamps show Greg's car in your driveway overnight multiple times while you were in a hotel. The footage of them kissing in your driveway is date-stamped 3 days after you left. What about her claims that I abandoned the family? Hard to claim abandonment when you've been paying all the bills, including the mortgage on the house where she's living with her boyfriend. Patricia's smile got sharper. Your wife is about to learn that adultery still matters in divorce court. My phone rang. Julia. Alex, we need to talk. I think we're past talking, Julia. My lawyer will handle everything from here. This is insane. You can't destroy our family over this. I didn't destroy our family. You did. On New Year's Eve, when you decided Greg was more important than our marriage. It's not that simple. It really is. You made your choice. Now I'm making mine. What do you want? Money? The house? I'll give you whatever you want if you just stop this madness. I looked at Patricia, who was taking notes and nodding approvingly. What I want, Julia, is for you to face the consequences of your actions. For the first time in our marriage, you're going to be held accountable. You're being vindictive. No, I'm being honest. There's a difference, though I understand why you might not recognize it. That evening, I met Neil for dinner at a restaurant downtown. He'd been following the neighborhood drama on social media with the enthusiasm of someone watching a really good TV show. Dude, you've got to see this, he said, showing me his phone. Julia's friends are melting down on Facebook. I looked at the screen. Tara had posted a long rant about vindictive ex-husbands and public humiliation. Marcy had shared an article about toxic masculinity in divorce proceedings. Several other people had commented, but not in the way they'd probably hoped. Look at the comments, Neil said. Mrs. Patterson had written, some people need to learn that actions have consequences. Tom from down the street had added, truth isn't vindictive. It's just truth. Even people I didn't know were weighing in. If you don't want to be publicly embarrassed, don't publicly embarrass yourself. It gets better, Neil said, scrolling down. Greg's business is getting review bombed. Someone found his gym's Facebook page and started posting about home-wrecking personal trainers. I didn't do that. I know you didn't. But word spreads fast in the age of social media. Greg Wallace, fitness entrepreneur, is learning that reputation matters in business. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Greg. We need to talk. I showed Neil, who raised an eyebrow. What are you going to do? Talk to him. Why not? I called the number. Greg answered on the first ring. Alex, thank God. Look, this whole thing has gotten out of hand. Has it? People are calling my business, posting fake reviews, harassing my employees. This needs to stop. What needs to stop, Greg? The truth? It's not that simple, man. Julia and I, we have history. Real history. But we never meant for it to happen like this. How did you mean for it to happen? I don't know. But not like this. Not with lawyers and public humiliation and... He trailed off. And consequences? This is destroying both our lives. No, Greg. Your choices destroyed both your lives. I'm just making sure everyone knows what those choices were. What do you want? Money? I'll pay you to make this stop. I almost laughed. You think this is about money. Isn't it? Isn't that what divorce is always about? This divorce is about truth, Greg. About accountability. About making sure that when my daughter asks me why her parents got divorced, I can tell her honestly that her mother chose another man over our family. Alex, please. You want this to stop? Leave town. Go back to Denver. End whatever this is with Julia and disappear from our lives. Do that, and I'll consider asking people to stop calling your business. And if I don't, then you'll find out what happens when someone with nothing left to lose decides to tell the whole truth. I hung up and looked at Neil, who was grinning. Damn, Alex. Remind me never to cross you. I'm not trying to be vindictive. I just want them to face reality. Sometimes reality is vindictive. The next morning, I got a call from Patricia. We have a problem, she said. Julia's hired David Martinez. I recognized the name. Martinez was expensive, aggressive, and had a reputation for turning divorce proceedings into scorched earth warfare. What does that mean for us? It means she's not going quietly. Martinez specializes in cases where wives claim emotional abuse, financial control, things like that. He's going to try to flip the narrative. Can he do that? He can try. But Alex, you've done something most of my clients don't do. You've documented everything. Every conversation, every interaction, every piece of evidence. Martinez is good, but he's not a magician. What's our next move? We go on offense. I'm filing for an emergency hearing to establish temporary custody and support. We're going to ask the court to order Greg out of the marital home, and we're going to present all your evidence. How soon? Next week. And Alex? I need you to be prepared for this to get ugly. Martinez doesn't play nice. That afternoon, Maddie called. Dad, I need to tell you something. Mom's lawyer wants to talk to me. My blood went cold. What kind of talk? He wants to ask me about you, about our relationship, about whether you've ever been angry or controlling or... She paused. Dad, they're going to try to make you look bad. Maddie, listen to me very carefully. You don't have to talk to anyone you don't want to talk to. You're a minor and you have rights. I know, but Dad, if they ask me questions, I'm going to tell the truth. What truth? That you're the best father I could ask for. That you never raised your voice, never made me feel unsafe, never did anything but love me and Mom. Her voice got stronger. And that Mom brought her boyfriend into our house and acted like you didn't matter. Maddie? No, Dad. I'm 15, not 5. I saw what happened. I saw how she treated you, how she treated our family. If her lawyer wants to ask me questions, I'll answer them, honestly. After we hung up, I sat in my hotel room and realized that this was no longer just about Julia and Greg and their betrayal. This was about my daughter's future, about what kind of lessons she'd learn from watching how this played out. Julia and her lawyer thought they could rewrite history, turn me into the villain and her into the victim. They were about to learn that truth has a way of fighting back, and I was done being the nice guy. The real war was about to begin.